Yo, what's up, Grand Rising, Grand Rising? Welcome to the live direct from San Antonio. Yes, we have moved to San Antonio. Why my hat so crooked? It feels crooked as hell. Anyway, coming live from San Antonio. We're on a schedule now. So the schedule is going to be every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time Zone, Central Standard Time here in San Antonio. We will be going live. Uh, this will be our regularly scheduled time frame. Going to give a few minutes for people to come on. It's good to be able to be on a regular schedule. Regular schedule. I didn't bring my phone charger up here. It's good to be on a regular schedule. I like a regular schedule. We're only going live on Facebook and YouTube. No more TikTok and all the interruptions that we have from that one. So I hope everybody's been having a good week, good month. Since it's been since we've been on here, a few weeks since we've been able to go live. We all moved in, got all moved in here in San Antonio. So now it's time to really kick it in. And tonight we're going to talk about the similarities between the Egyptian creation stories and I say stories and the biblical one, and we will see how certain similarities led up to your biblical version of creation. So let me know if you guys, if the chalk of the board behind me, can you read it or is it backwards? Like when I'm looking at it on the camera, I can read it perfectly. I know that says Memphis, that says Thebes, but can y'all read it that way or is it backwards? Because I don't know about all this mirroring things. How you doing, Renee? Renee, welcome back. Welcome back. We here. We here. We're going to talk about this Egyptian, um, and you guys are going to help me find the similarities. You're going to help me find the similarities between the Egyptians and the. Okay, you can read it. It's all good. 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 I guess it automatically mirrors because, like, I'm holding this hand up. It looks opposite to me. It looks like it's on this side of my head. All right. What's your handle on YouTube? Deconstructing Christianity. Deconstructing Christianity. Um, for my YouTubers who are members and also who like the super chat, you will notice that the super chat button don't work because my YouTube got demonetized and I can't appeal. So see, that's if you want to donate to the channel, it's right here. It's right here. We got to figure this opposite thing. Uh, so if you wanted to continue to support the channel, which I greatly appreciate, that's how you're going to have to do it until this channel get remonetized on YouTube. But that's not going to stop us from getting it done. That's not going to stop us from getting it done. Now we're going to try. We're going to try to stay within the confines of the creation. I see that people are already talking about. We got who is that? What did I see? Mr. Taylor. Oh, Miss Taylor. I'm just gonna say Taylor. I don't know if it's a male or female. It's talking about Psalms was copied. It was, but we're talking about the creation story. And we have a lot to get through. This live will probably last an hour, hour and a half, max 2 hours. Um, but we got a lot. The reason why we have a lot to get through is simply because the Kemetic slash Egyptian creation story is not a simple story, but it will demonstrate how as the society continued to develop, it built on top of each other and stood on the shoulders. And then we'll get into how the what parts of it that the biblical writers copied and made it their own. And those are some of the art and what they did, some of those arguments that Christians like to make, they cannot be made when you understand the full scope of how things are done, right? You jumping ahead, Reed. Well, Seth, Jan, Chris, Halton, Reed. That's a whole lot of name. We're gonna get into the whole thing about Ra and the growth of Ra, because it's not just simply Ra as the creator. It's not just simply Ra as the creator. We have to understand. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's 5 minutes. and 5 minutes right now. So let's get started. So the first thing that we have to understand, our knowledge of the Egyptian creation story is based on the pyramid text. For the most part, our pyramid text is something that has been documented to be around 2700 BCE to 2200 BCE. The biblical text was at its earliest, which is unlikely, but I'm going to give it that 1300 BCE to 223 CE. Now, it's most likely the biblical text actually didn't start to be written until around the 800s BCE. But just for the Christians who are going to say that Moses wrote it, if Moses wrote it, the earliest it could have been written was 1300, in the 1300s, 1200s BCE. That's the earliest. But we know that it wasn't written at that time frame at all. The oral tradition could have started right around the 1200 BCE, because that's when the Bronze Age collapse happened. So this is very important to understand that the Kemetic story was written at a minimum of about 1400 to 900 years prior to any biblical story ever being written. Um, isn't Hathor older than Ra? No, Hathor is not older than Ra. So, in order to understand the pyramid text and understand how the Egyptian creation story came to be, and since Christians claim that Moses is the writer of the Genesis story, Moses, who supposedly grew up as an Egyptian prince, would have learned these stories. So if we were to give them if we gave to them and said that, okay, Moses existed, we know he didn't, but if we said Moses existed, then Moses would have known these stories based on the Kemetic pyramid text. Now, knowing full well that Moses was not, we also know that the reason why there is an Egyptian influence is because the area of the Levant that becomes Israel was controlled for 3,000 years by Egypt as a vassal state. They didn't gain any levels of independence until the Bronze Age collapse, which happened at 1200 BCE. And then over a 300 to 400 year period, the Canaanite people, who would then become the Israelites, formulated themselves under their own identity, their own rule as the Israelites. But this is coming off and under Kemetic rule. And so we're going to, at a later date, we'll do the Sumerian, so we can see how that was influential into their creation story, because the three competing groups were the Canaanites story, which is where they derive themselves from, but mostly the Sumerian and the Kemetic. So we'll probably do the Sumerians next week. That way we can put it in there. I hear some say that Moses is Thutmose or Akhenaten. No, Moses is not Thutmose nor Akhenaten. Those two people were in existence and died well before 1300. Akhenaten would be the closest one to it, but Moses could not have existed. Moses could not have existed prior to the Bronze Age collapse. So Sigmund Freud was one of the first people to put forth back in the late 1800s that Akhenaten was possibly Moses, because Akhenaten was teaching about one God in the worship of the Aten. So from that, they tried to make it that Moses was Akhenaten, one and the same, but then that goes against the story itself in the Bible, because Akhenaten became the king of Egypt, became the Pharaoh of Egypt. Moses never became Pharaoh. He was never Pharaoh. Akhenaten was killed. He got his tomb, found his mummy. We don't have anything about Moses. Absolutely nothing. Akhenaten never left Egypt. So Akhenaten is not, it could not have been. Nor could Thutmose. Thutmose was in like the 1400s BCE, depending upon which Thutmose we're talking about. We're talking about Akhenaten's father. Then that would have been in the late 1400s, going back further, because there were at least three Akhenatens. Thutmose is. Dr. Malachi York teaches that and he's wrong. It's just simply wrong. Actually, I was thinking about a video. I'm glad you said that because I will research that because there's a video I want to do tomorrow about how some of these people they kind of want to straddle the fence. They want to kind of hold on to these old stories and try to make it fit into a new paradigm. And so Dr. York is completely wrong. There's absolutely no way historically and archaeologically that Moses and Thutmose are the same, or Moses and Akhenaten are the same. It just doesn't work. The history doesn't work. Archaeology doesn't support it. So let's get into it. I know you guys are going to have questions, and I'll try to keep everything in line. That's so that we can have a good flow of this understanding. So when the first thing you have to understand is that the Kemetic story changes and builds based on the different era of time frame of which city was in charge, which city was the Mecca uh, for the Egyptian kingdom. So the first city, which you guys can't see the name, I guess the counter is in front of me, so I don't know if y'all can see it, but Hermopolis was the first city, the oldest city, right? That was the first city, the oldest one. I have to look into that later, Jose. But that was the first city. And then we go from Hermopolis to Heliopolis, and then we go to Memphis, and then we go to Thebes. Thebes being the last city. And we're going to see how each one of these build on each other to create the story. This is why you can, if someone is telling you the Egyptian creation story, they can't tell it to you and just tell one version of it, like saying just Ra, because a few hundred years later, 1,000 years later, then the Ra changes to Atum. And then a few hundred years from centuries later, a millennia later, it changes to Ptah. And then it changes to Amun. And we're going to see that progression and how the story gets massaged as it goes. All right. I think the Bible was written in Greek and it is translated to Hebrew. Okay, I'll research that. But so in the I'm gonna have to turn and look for me in the Hermopolis story. Well, the first thing that we have is in their creation story, they have out of the chaotic primordial waters. Now remember, how does the Bible start out, right? Jose, we're gonna do this first, and then we do other stuff later. But right now, we're sticking right here, so don't feel that I'm ignoring you. But they first created the Ogdode out of the chaotic waters. Now, of course, in the Bible, it starts out saying that in the beginning, this God hovered over the chaotic waters, the primordial waters. Now, they try to say that their God is eternal, but their God was hovering over some waters that was already in existence as well. So in both the Hermopolis and the Heliopolis story, there is this chaotic waters of the deep that are in existence prior to this eternal God of creation starting. Now, initially in the Hermopolis story, it is the Ogdode that emerges out of the primordial waters. And out of the Ogdode, there are 8 different gods and goddesses. So what you have is 4 gods, 4 goddesses, all of them representing different aspects of the primordial waters. They're representing the stagnant waters. The first 2 represent the stagnant waters. Then the second 2 represents the eternal waters. Then the next 2 represent the eternal, and then the depth of the waters. And then the next 2 represent the knowledge, the unknowable knowledge of the waters. So all 8 of them are considered the Ogdode, and from the Ogdode, that comes out of the primordial waters, and the males are represented by frogs, and the females are represented by snakes, right? So out of these snakes and frogs, and so you know how we get the snake in the serpent. The serpent is always a part of the Israelite story. And in many of the stories, the gods always have to bash in the heads of a snake. And in this instance, it's the serpent is bashed, head is bashed in. And in the Bible, we know the serpent is the problem person in the whole story, right? Anu is Sumerian, so we're going to do Sumerian next week. This is all, and Serapis is a Greek creation. So we're not doing the Greeks. This is the Kemetic. Let's stay on subject. I'm going to stay on subject regardless. So we got the frogs and snakes, and they all are emerging out of these primordial waters. Now, from the primordial waters, the cosmic egg or the lotus comes out of the primordial waters, and in order to manifest in the material world that we exist in, all of the Agdo come together and form Ra, the sun god, right? So when they form Ra, the sun god, it is formed on the Benben, which is this piece of land, a small piece of land that emerges out of the water. And so Ra is standing on the Benben, or on the well, it was the Benben, and he's standing there, and Ra then begins to create and have his children. But in order to talk about Ra's children, we're going to look at the fact that he becomes a tomb in Heliopolis, and I put his children under the Heliopolis version just to have get better spacing. And what happens is, in the story in Heliopolis, in the story of Atum, who comes out of the chaotic waters as well, but Atum is the first time in Heliopolis where they say that he is self-generate. Prior to that, he was generated out of the pressures of the Agdo coming together. Once the story moves to Heliopolis, now Atum becomes self-generating, and he is also considered a single god. And from that single god comes all the multiple gods who are merely just aspects. So it's kind of like how Yahweh is the single God, but out of Yahweh comes all the angels, your archangels, and so on and so forth. So we can see that there are some similarities within that concept, and where the concept of having a heavenly host comes from. That heavenly host is part of the Heliopolis story. Now, Ra/Atum then has children. The first children is Shu and Tefnut. Shu, who is a representation of the air, and Tefnut, representation of the water. Now, in that story, they are created by, in the Heliopolis story, they're created by either the masturbation or the tears. Or the masturbation or the sneezing of Atum/Ra. And those two, Shu and Tefnut, get together, and they're brothers and sisters. Well, before I go there, Shu and Tefnut are sitting there with Ra/Atum, and they are on the Benben, and they slip off of the Benben into the primordial waters. Then Ra/Atum eye pop, he has his eye come out, goes into the waters, finds them, brings them back to the Benben, and he's so overjoyed by finding them that his tears create man, and man is then created from the tears of Ra/Atum in the Hermopolis story and the Heliopolis story. Now, the creation of mankind comes later in the Memphis story, and then there is some differences in the Heliopolis story that man does not. So man comes from tears in the Hermopolis story, but not in the Heliopolis story. So when they created, so once they are back, Tefnut and Shu, they get together and they have children. Their children is Jeb and Nut, and Jeb representing the land, and Nut is representation of the sky. Now, Jeb and Nut was in such an incestuous relationship that they were grasping each other. So Shu, the air god, blew in between them and separated them. Once they were separated, that is how we get the separation of the land and that's how we get land, right? So that man can actually have a place to live. Remember, in your biblical story, it is this guy creates, it's all just water, and then he creates the land, and he separates the land and the sky. He separates the waters above and the waters below, sorry, and in order to create land. This is similar to how the uh, Jeb and Nut have to be separated so by shoes so that they can have land that people can, birds and animals and people can live on. And that's why the Egyptian hieroglyphic shows Jeb at the bottom and Tef and Nut at the top, and Shu is holding them, is separating them. That way, the world, the cosmology of the world, then can be created. And this is where they get that idea of a firmament above and there are waters above. Because in their story, the primordial waters of chaos are the waters that are above. So understand, if Moses existed, they learning all these, he learned all these things. Also, but the true archaeology is that the Canaanite people who would become Israelites would have been learning all of this. And so when they're doing their own story, they're taking this information. Now, Jeb and Nut, they have a bunch of kids. They have Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Memphis. Now, those all together, all 9 of those together are called the Ennead. It's important to understand that they're the Ennead because they come up again later. Now, in the Heliopolis story, man is created through other bodily fluids of the gods, not necessarily from just the tears of Ra, but also created from the bodily fluids of the Ennead. So all the 9 of the 9 different gods, they are, yeah, I said nut, but it's Nut, yes. But it is, because it's spelled, we in English is spelled nut, but it's Nut. You're right. Thank you for that, trauma. So just through bodily fluids, whether it's, whatever fluid it is, it doesn't really, the pyramid text doesn't specifically say which fluids that they are, that people come from. But that's how man is created in those 2 stories. Now, when we look at the Memphis story, right? In the Memphis story, now Ra slash Atum is called Ptah, and Ptah is considered eternal. So now we're getting closer to the 22, the second millennial. We're down in the second millennial, almost close to the first millennial, where we are, the people of Egypt are worshiping Ptah as the primary god, because Memphis is now the city, the center of all civilization for the Egyptian people. So when you, so Ptah now is created, he's eternal. This is when God becomes eternal for them. It is not so much, but God does not come out of the primordial chaotic waters, but Ptah was before the chaotic water. And Ptah then creates just through having a thought and through the heart. It's through the thought, and they believe that your thought comes from your heart, not from your brain. This is why when they would entomb someone, they would pull the brain out and throw it away, but they would entomb you with your heart, because they believe that's where your thoughts come from. So out of Ptah's thoughts, he then creates the earth and utilizing his words. And the way that he creates is that he created Atum and the Ennead, right? So he created these beings from his thoughts of his heart and his words. And then he created man just by using his words of creating man, and he breathed life into man. So Ptah is the first time a story is being told that the God is breathing life into man directly. And that comes out of Memphis. And then the last city, which is Thebes, let me slide over, which is Thebes, Ptah's name now is changed to Amun. Now, this is going to be the last primary deity of the Egyptian pantheon before the Bronze Age collapse. And so Amun, who is also eternal, because now Ptah is now called Amun. Not only did he create the Ennead, but he created the Ogdoad itself. So he's before the chaotic waters. He created the Ogdode. He's not doing things like how Ra is fighting Apophis every night on the sonship boat, and Seth is helping him. He is just the eternal God, and every other deity, Ra, uh, Osiris, Isis, Set, all of those are now considered to be aspects of a moon. Kind of like how in the Indus religion, all the different gods are merely aspects of Brahma. So they are now aspects of a moon. And just like how man was created by Ptah, by using thought and words, the same is given to a moon that he creates through thoughts and through words. So now for this last like millennial of time before the Bronze Age collapse, the Egyptians who are in control of the Canaanite people are teaching that their primary God, whether it's Ptah or Amun, is an eternal God that created all things before. He was eternal before anything, that there was this primordial waters of chaos. He was before that, but out of that primordial water of chaos, with his word, he created the universe. He created all things, and he created the separation. Now they still had their other deities, because with Amun being the creator of the Ogdode, and the Ogdode creating Ra, and then Ra becoming Atum, and then Atum creating the Enid, Amun is the creator of all of this, which are just merely aspects of Amun. And through the actions of these other deities, of these other aspects of him, all the world was created. So when you see that the Kemetic story is saying that, well, this is the god of air, this is the god of like Sekhmet. Sekhmet is an aspect. And, Sekhmet was killing people so much that they had to trick her with some drinking some blood so that she would stop killing everybody. When people were so evil on the planet, instead of a flood, Ra sent Sekhmet, and Sekhmet was just killing everybody. And then it got too bad, and so that she didn't kill everybody, so that this reset can happen, they tricked her with a little blood. She got a little drunk, kind of like how Noah got drunk at the end of his story, and she passes out, and that quenches her blood rage. But Amun is now the God over all those things. So we have some similarities, because in the Bible, it starts out talking about cosmic waters, the primordial waters. It talks about separating the air and the land, the heavens above and the heavens, and the waters above and the waters below. We have a correcting of getting rid of people, because Osiris, we also have in the Osirian story how Osiris is teaching people to stop eating people and start eating fruits and vegetables. But people, because they were killing each other, they was acting crazy. But then his brother tricks him. And so we have the two brothers, and the good brother dies, and the bad brother is the one who winds up being king for a while. Right. And then it's the son who comes back and rules and defeats the evil brother. So there are small elements, and then there are large elements that we find in both of these stories. It would be ludicrous for any of us to suggest that not one element from the Kemetic story made it into the Bible. It is very obvious that the biblical story was influenced at minimum by the Kemetic story. You have by the time the Canaanite people are even in existence, because there were no Canaanite people in the third millennium. You don't get Canaanite people into the first millennium. And towards the end of the second millennium into the first millennium, that's when you get Canaanites, and the Canaanites, the hillside Canaanite people, become your Israelite people. They learned from the Kemetic people about the primordial waters, about an eternal God, about God separate the dome, the firmament, the separation of the waters above and the waters below, in order to create land. They learned about the gods created man, and God breathed life into man. It was all learned through them. That the gods were dissatisfied with man. After Ra stopped, and it was actually after Ra stopped, Ra was leading man, and man taught man agriculture and all these things, and man started acting stupid, and then he sent Sekhmet. their version, God was, man was living and then doing things, and then the gods, uh, this God sent a flood. Sekhmet has to get drunk. Noah has to get drunk. Small elements. But even within that story, there was something that was just on my brain. I forgot it. Ra, Ra was fighting. No, I said Ra was the king. Oh, through the Heliopolis story, mankind derived itself from all this begetting, right? All these guys having babies, until guys finally started the babies, in that incestuous relationship, the the babies eventually become man. So you can see elements of the Nephilim, man coming from the gods through birth. So here's them doing that. And so you can see, if you wanted to twist that story about how through generations of birthing, of intermarried birth, incestuous birthing, you get to man. Instead of just being incestuous, let's just say some sons of God came down and had sex with man, right? So, so to me, there's a lot of similarities. And it's not just to me. I mean, it's just the reality of it. When you read both stories side by side, the only way you can deny that there are similarities is just you choose to. And that's it. You just choose to. Uh, I know I've missed some of the things that you guys have said, but I wanted to make sure we get through that part first so that we have a base of understanding in our conversation here. Um, there's a brain in your heart. Yes, there is. You Most will say you have three brains. I say you got four. You got your brain, your heart brain, that's two. Your gut brain, which is instinct. Okay, so this brain uses rational thought and logic. This brain, your heart brain, uses emotions. Your gut brain is based on your instincts. And then, because of how we respond sexually to things, you got your ping ping and your pom pom brain. But there are neural pathways in your stomach, in your heart, and it's the same that there are in your brain. So we do have three brains. They just respond and act differently. The Kemetic people thought that your thoughts came from your heart and not from your head. My issue with you is that you seem to think nature is the end all till you can prove something otherwise. I can prove it yet, but the universe is not all there is, and higher beings do exist. We can become those higher beings. My theory is the same, that some gods and religion became human through reincarnation. No such thing as all things. We live in a multiverse. Okay, so here's the thing about that. I am open to the possibility that there could be there are other dimensional planes of existence. I fully accept that there are other dimensional planes of existence, because we can see mentally that there are different dimensional planes now. They're not always the high dimensional sci-fi kind of dimension thing. Look at your existence compared to a plant's existence, or an insect's existence, or a microscopic something microscopic, their existence. The plant cannot function in this matter plane existence the same way we do. And all things in the universe are matter. There is nothing outside of matter. So even in the higher planes, matter still exists. You cannot escape the laws of nature. No matter how much we want to, the laws of nature just cannot be escaped. So there are mental planes, conscious planes, that are beyond and above anything we can conceptualize right now. How do we get there? Just by trying to understand as much about the laws of nature as we can. You can't escape nature. So when I say that nature is the all in all, is the all to the end all to be all, it is because there's nothing outside of it. It's just that there are levels of nature that we can't understand right now. That we are not in, as Trauma is saying, we're not on that frequency level. Like, the frequency level we exist at of consciousness is wholly different from the frequency level that a plant exists at, right? If a plant existed at the same frequency level we existed at, then you'd be able to, the plant would talk back to you. You wouldn't have to tell it when, it would tell you when to water it, right? So to me, you are making a box when there is no need for a box. There is no need for a box. How do we get there? Shit. We can only get to, there are certain levels of mental mastery that we can get to as an individual, as a group. We ain't that many, but as an individual. Most will live 10,000 lives before they ever get there. So for those whose mental capacities are increasing, you will always be the one out of a billion. Because most people in the lifetime that they're living in right now today cannot get there because they're trapped in boxes. It's not that they are similar, they are the same. And I understand what you're saying, Dark Side, by saying that all things are connected, all things are one. But within the connections, we have individual lines. It's kind of like a rope. A rope is one made of thousands of threads, but it is all one. But it can be looked upon individually. The drop of water in the ocean doesn't realize that it is the ocean, and yet it is not the ocean. It is merely part of the ocean, but it is also the ocean in itself, right? So until you can fully grasp that, and there are not words to express that level of understanding. It is just something you just know, something you know, something you feel, something you're instinctively connected to. It's just there. And I don't spend a lot of time getting into those details because it's not explainable. It's just simply not. It's kind of like the idea of a creator. A creator cannot be explainable nor defined. But they created their creator, they defined their creator. This is their attempt to understand the universe. And that's all these religions are, is an attempt to try to understand the universe. But when they do, they put it in a box. All of a sudden, the Ogdo is this, the Enid is that, Ra is this, Ptah is that, Amun is this. This is how they function. The answer is not always the same. Okay, let's see. The brain is spirit. The thoughts are. I think there is more to a person than the physical. I can't prove it. I can observe myself. So it seems there is a me separate from the atom that makes up my body. The meat suit, I shall say so. Yep. This is just, as I've said many times before, this is just a meat suit, just encasing your consciousness right now. The challenge is to escape the meat suit, to get to a part of, to get to a conscious level where this is recognized for what it is. It's a box that you're being held in. Just like all of that is a box for their belief in a God, this is a box for your belief in you, right? Like I'm looking at the camera and I see me and I identify that on this plane of existence, this is the me. But there's an I that is much larger than this me. Nature needs quantum. Quantum doesn't need nature. Hence, nature needs atoms, protons, electrons. Atoms need the quantum realm to operate. But in every realm, there will still be matter. It's kind of like, and matter is nature. It's still nothing outside of that nature. For instance, they thought that the molecule was the smallest thing. Then we realized that no, there's the atom. And then the atom was the smallest thing. Then we realized that it is the nucleus and the electrons. Then we realized within the nucleus there is the protons and neutrons. And then we realized that the space in between the protons, neutrons, and electrons, that there is what we call dark matter. So we are always finding out that there is more, that it goes deeper and deeper, but all of it is still, there is matter. Like they thought space was empty. No, space is filled with matter. You go fast enough in space, it creates friction and heat. Why? Because it's rubbing against matter. There's always matter. If something was, nothing can be outside of the universe. It's just exists in different aspects within the universe. Kind of like how in the Thebes, a moon, all the other deities are just aspects of a moon. Everything in the universe is just aspects of matter, right? Higher planes and lower planes. This is what the law of correspondence in the Hermetic teachings is about. It's about there are different planes of existence, different planes of consciousness. Just like there's different planes of life on this planet, there's also different planes of consciousness on this planet. And if there are different planes of consciousness at this level, then there must be higher planes of consciousness as well. But they still exist within the universe. How can you describe when someone feels that something is going to happen and it does happen? What do you call it or think about that person? Look, if you can, what's the group? There was a ancient brotherhood called the Sons. It's either the Sons of Mithra or the Brothers of Mithra, one of them. But they had a saying, and that saying said that time is like a river, ever spinning in a circle. And what they meant by that is that time is just a circle of water, and all of it is all the same water. You can choose what parts of the water to pick from. If a person has the ability or develops the ability to be able to have cognition, then to predict something is not out of place. Now, the only problem about predicting something is that once you know something, you could change the variables and you could change that thing happening. But yes, some people call that a prophet. The only thing about a prophet is that you turn out, most of them are wrong. Now, some things are easy, some things you can predict, and just because of knowledge of how things work, this doesn't make you a prophet. It just makes you a good estimator. Like, no, I'm not gonna say that one because it might go a different direction. This conversation might go a different direction. Would somebody be crazy to predict that a mass shooting will happen in a school before Christmas? You can predict that, and you're probably going to be right. But when you can pull from space-time, that's different. And I think that is very rare that someone has the ability to do that. I think you have more of an opportunity to do that when you're asleep and you're dreaming and you have a dream and then that dream turns out to be a reality. Like the dream I had some of the dreams I had last night, I had like 3 dreams last night, but one of them, I hope that one doesn't become reality because I don't like the way that dream went. But I think the most of the time when your consciousness is free is when you're asleep, because when we're awake, our consciousness becomes confined to what we perceive our world to be. As a hermetic God is a mind, the all, and nothing exists outside of the all. Exactly, Orville. To suggest that, and within the mind of the all, there is matter throughout it all. So you cannot exist outside of the mind of the all. Nothing can, which is to say that you cannot exist outside of this universe. And this universe is completely filled with matter. It's just getting on a different frequency. Ain't that intuition? In an immediate sense, it could be. You could look at it as intuition because it is in the Hermetic thought process, your gut brain is connected to universal source, to source energy, to frequency, is more connected to everything than your heart or your mind. So your gut, this is why I always tell people, listen to your gut. When your gut tells you something, you should follow your gut because it's most likely warning you or moving you in the right direction. And that's merely because it's reading the frequencies of things around you. In 1994, I predicted the bio attack on the world. I was at NBC schools. Everyone thought I was nuts. Here we are. Okay. I'm not trying to short. You got to have some proof of that, man. You to say that, I'm not going to believe it unless you have some proof. And especially something like that, because I can tell you that. Can I tell you? Yeah, I can tell you that in around that same time frame, working for the headquarters command I was in, we were predicting bio attacks on the whole world too. We were predicting plagues. Hell, we were predicting attacks on American soil. We predicted those things based on just our knowledge of how things were going. I mean, you had the sarin gas attacks that was in Japan and all these other things. So it was a logical reasoning to think that those kinds of things would happen. So you have, and then you have to be specific. If it's just like, I predict that there will be a pandemic that will devastate the planet in 2030 or in the next 50 years, that's not a prediction. That's a really good guess based on how the world is moving and what has already happened. So I respect your opinion, but I still believe nature is a matrix, a false material realm. Okay. But even if there was something outside of our understanding of nature, like let's say we existed right now in one universe and there was something on a universe outside of ours that was controlling this universe, it would all still be part of the greater universe. So there's only so far we'll be able to prove anything. At some point, it becomes based on the most information we have today. This is what we think it might be. Trauma said, "My gut's never been wrong." Well, my gut's never been wrong. Now I have reasoned my way into the different direction of my gut, and I've emotionalized my way to the different direction of my gut. But I have learned to try to listen to my gut most of the time. But your gut feelings, yeah, that's how we go from this to this conversation. Y'all can't ever stay on conversation. Y'all can't ever stay on topic. None of y'all. What's your favorite? I guess we into the just conversation part because y'all didn't hardly talk about none of this, so maybe this subject matter just wasn't something that y'all was as interested in as I thought you would be. But that's fine. I'm good. Coach, what? Wait a minute. What exactly do you believe in? I don't believe anything. I don't use that term. I do things based on what I know. If you're asking what type of principles that I follow as far as my estimations of things beyond my scope of proof, it would be their hermetic laws. For instance, the idea that the all, like there's no God that peddles everybody as a puppet master and this Yahweh and Ra and all those, they don't exist. There is but the all. The all is unknowable, is undescribable, but everything exists in the mind of the all, and that would be the universe, a universal consciousness, and that universal consciousness would be energy, and it, as much as it is to the right, it is to the left. It is all things, good and bad, big and small. So it is all things, but everything is not the all. That is the divine paradox, that the all is in all, but all are not the all. So as far as that is concerned, like in that concept, we all have the ability to expand ourselves and grow and become greater than the dimensional planes that we live in today. But that is solely up to us, and there are no Bibles that you are to follow, but just following the Hermetic laws will get you to the next level. And then when you get there, who knows? Who knows? Nobody knows because nobody's been there and came back. My favorite subjects to study: uh, ancient archaeology, ancient religion, ancient civilizations, relationships, sex. Uh, those are my favorite ones, and sports. Those are my, basketball, football, favorite sport. Yeah. Can you go to the astral or the ether? Some people claim that they can. Hey, Renee. I don't believe in oneness source, in a oneness source. So you think that there are multiple gods or something? I don't understand what you mean by that, about oneness source. Inquisitive mind create more questions than answers. Yeah, because as soon as you get an answer, there's another question. All right. Let's say we figure out what dark matter is. We figure out we are able to measure dark matter. We see it and we can use it and we can have full conception of dark matter. Then the question is, well, how did dark matter come into existence? What is it made of? What is dark matter made of? So there's always more questions. You're always the student. Yeah. Now I do study self-improvement. I see. I study. He said my favorite though. Now I study a bunch of stuff, but those are my favorite subjects. Is the Book of the Dead on your chart? I read the Book of the Dead about 30 years ago. I mean, it was interesting. There's a bunch of spells for things that you need to make it into the field of reeds with Osiris. But it has some interesting concepts. But most of it, that's what kind of led me to the Hermetics, uh, because it was after reading the Book of the Dead that my mentor at the time was like, "Now read this," and handed me the Kabbalion. What Dre just hit? You can email me what your thoughts, what your as far as interviewing. I'm typing in the email address right now. Thank you, Memphis Rosetta. Oh, you're not talking to me. All right, so that's my email address. If you have any questions, oh, and I'm just saying this again, just in case for people who didn't come. If you are a member of my YouTube page, or you are someone who likes to do super chats and you haven't been able to do it, is because my YouTube page has been demonetized until I can submit an appeal on December 26th. So if you'd like to continue to support the channel, let me see if I can get it. Nope, nope. That's how you support the channel right now, if you still want to support the channel. I'm not asking anybody to do so. I just know some people like to, and I know they've had trouble recently, and that is why. And that is why they have had trouble because of YouTube. And I found out that a lot of YouTube people had their channels demonetized, and now they have to submit this whole thing, which is wild to me that they're doing that. Reading a wild book right now, Secret Teachings of All the Ages, Manly P. Hall. Manly P. Hall. It's a study, not just a read. Manly P. Hall is a very good read. I haven't I read him about 10, 15 years ago. Um, really reading Manly P. Hall, you are reading his thought process on the seven Hermetic principles, and with a lot of um, Buddhist mentality and with a lot of Buddhist influence as well as Gnostic influence. But it's good. Yes, YouTube does do too much right now. They tripping on me. Um, it's kind of cool though. I started a relationship channel on YouTube as well. So there's a relationship channel called Lorenzo Reed 369. It's all about relationship. It has nothing to do with religion. So don't go on that channel talking about religion. But I would like for you guys to subscribe to that channel as well. Lorenzo Reed, as my name is spelled right there. But Lorenzo Reed, but 369. Um, it's been pretty fun. I enjoy talking about relationship. Were we talking about starting a church and a business and business development? I would not start a church. No. Business development, sure. Business, I love business. Sorry, my other favorite subject is business. I love business, but a church, a religious organization, not so much. Appreciate you love the when I say you have to be yourself quote. You made it. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I do have T-shirts that says that has that quote. We do sell T-shirts at Shine Universe. Shine, I think it's shineuniverse.net and the Mastering You store. It's on all. Let's see, what are you on? You're on YouTube because I don't post the link to that on YouTube. It's always on Facebook. If God is a physical God, a body, that would be a limited God. A God that is born, mature, and then dies cannot be God. God has to be absolute, and that always exists and will exist in, infinitely. Exactly, which is why none of the gods of any of these religions could ever be God. They're too limited to be a God, to be the God, if there is one of that level. Oh, John, you're starting a church and a business. Okay. But did you have ideas to go along with it? Um, I did actually think about starting a hermetic organization. It wasn't going to be a religious, but a hermetic spiritual organization. Look, man, just you get like-minded people to join together and come together, and um, the biggest thing I think if I were to start any religious, the biggest thing is you got to help people deal with how life is today. And one of those things is economics. If you're not teaching economics in your spiritual system, then you're doing those people a disservice. Because if you're just taking advantage of people's poverty and taking advantage of their desire to elevate themselves into a better living condition, then it's just as bad as any other church. So to me, a primary thing any spiritual organization should be teaching is how to get the people living in the best situation they possibly can within the society that they live in. That way, if they're not worried about can I eat, am I going to have the lights on, are we going to have water, can I pay my rent, can I pay this, can I pay that? Once you relieve them of those stresses, then they can focus on their spirituality, right? This is one reason why monks go into their temples and they isolate themselves and the community takes care of them so that they can focus on their spirituality. But if your people are always worried about being able to just get through the month, then how can they focus on developing their consciousness? They can't, or they don't do it as well as they possibly could. So if you're John, I would focus on real ways for them to expand their financial capital and not that bullshit of prayer, which I'm pretty sure you won't do. You know, we'll be glad to have a whole section for deconstructing these Sumerian tablets. we will be next week. I'm going to do the Sumerian creation story and talk about that one. I did a video the other day about the Epic of Gilgamesh and how it compares to the whole Noah's flood and the Bible, pulling different aspects from the Epic of Gilgamesh. That was like earlier this week. So Marcus, yeah, I know the Facebook people can't see the YouTube people conversation, and the YouTube people can't see the Facebook people conversation. I wish this thing allowed for everybody to see everybody's conversation. That'd be great. Oh, thank you, Angelina. So Angelina just posted on Facebook the Facebook link, but let me. I'm gonna take hers. If y'all stop typing in it, how can I copy that and put it so that the YouTube people can see it? Oh, that's for if you want to purchase a shirt or mug or whatever with the, free yourself to be yourself, or good journey, good vibrations, or your lying ass liar. But I wanted to copy it and post it on here. Oh, sorry. She beat me to it. She beat me to it. Angelina's already on YouTube and she's going to see. That's what. Now, see, on the religious channel, was that today I was talking about? I was talking about how on a video, you got to have a co-pilot. If your spouse, your spouse is not your co-pilot, you need to get rid of them. You need to be your co-pilot, not your passenger. And she just yelled something to me from the other room, but I don't know what she said. But Angelina, if you could post the link on YouTube as well, I would greatly appreciate it. From your YouTube channel, that'd be great. Thank you very much. All right. Any more questions? Any more questions? Any more thoughts? Any more questions? Any more thoughts? Any more questions? Any more thoughts? Do you fast? Semi. Only when I feel the need to. So it's very rare that at this point in my life, that I feel the need to fast. I know a lot of people fast in order for them to get into more of their consciousness, but I don't. I've gotten to a point where I can get deeper into my consciousness without having to fast. Now, most of the time you can call it fasting. I do it in the morning, so I don't. My body's not complicated by a bunch of food and whatnot. But I also don't eat crap. So I don't. My mind is. I have great clarity. As people who've been on this page know, and I am not saying for any of you guys to do this, all right? But I do gain great clarity in my dreams, and I remember every dream that I have. And before I put my feet on the floor, I think about that dream and evaluate those dreams. But on YouTube, it's Deconstructing Christianity. Ain't nothing like a good shroom trip. But I do my shroom trips differently than people. I don't do it for pleasure. It is done for spiritual consciousness. I will, don't eat crap that day leading up to it, that day of it. And I will meditate, throughout the day before. But I always gain a lot of great clarity and thought on a shroom trip. But you shouldn't do that. I'm not telling you to do it. You stay away from it. Are you qualified to do family therapy? I'm going to answer this in a way, and I'm not being a smart ass. I'm qualified. Do I have American certificates and things of that nature? No. So I do have a life coaching. I do have a coaching programs that I utilize for both business and personal coaching. Yep, you fast every time you sleep. But I do not claim to be a therapist because of our rules in America, but I do coach people. Sound therapy is great. I got my bowls right over here, and and I will meditate and use my bowls. I already saw you said that earlier, Munoz. So yeah, I got you. But why do I need to look this guy up? Like, what's so special about him? I mean, instead of me going to read about somebody, just tell me what their thought, what is the thing? How do you sign up? I do mushroom trips on my own. They're not legal. It's not legal to do that. So I would never promote something like that. It's not legal. I'm telling you not to do it. Uh, you know what? So that y'all can see what I'm reading. Did you know that the founding fathers took Egyptian Kemetic symbols, read Egypt on the Potomac and Nile? Of course, you can see Egyptian symbols all over the place. Yeah. Okay. He also says the Bible, oldest Bible, which is the Greek Bible, says that Jesus' disciples were pubescent kids who Jesus trafficked for sex rituals and drug. See, there would be no reason for me to read this guy's book because the Bible, Jesus never existed. Um, but the oldest, see, you can't say the oldest Bible was written in Greek because you have the Torah and other Masoretic writings that were written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and then it was converted to the Septuagint, and then the um, apostles, this I mean not the apostles, the writers of the New Testament was written in Greek as far as we know, but it's possible that it was originally written in Aramaic. Some of it was written in Aramaic. We know Paul's letter was all written in Greek, but some of the other stuff could have been written in Aramaic and then translated into Greek. But at the end of the day, none of those writings are, most of them are late first century and then early second century. So, and there are no originals. Do you believe that what you can see is not real and what you cannot see is real? Not necessarily. Or I think that everything that I see and everything that I can't see is real. It's all real. Like this phone is real, but this phone is also frequencies and in vibration in a vibrational state. It's just at such a slow vibrational state that I can hold it, but it's still real. The air is real. Um, I don't know what you mean by what I can see is not real. Try working out while fasting, you build muscle faster. When I was a personal trainer, I would tell people, I would never tell people to do that. You can also put yourself in a position of danger, pass out while you're working out. But I understand what you're saying because you're going to metabolize fat faster, and your body's going to, when it regenerates during your resting phase, it's going to try to build that muscle. Oh, and by the way, on the relationship channel, I was challenged to getting healthy and fit. So I'm challenging y'all too. So weigh-ins on Saturday. So everybody got to weigh in on Saturday. The oldest Bible is no, sir. The Ethiopian Bible is not the oldest Bible. That's not the first thing. The Ethiopian Bible wasn't even constructed until 330. The Marcion Bible was done in 144. So the Ethiopian Coptic Bible is not the oldest Bible. The Ethiopian Coptic Bible is not the Bible that everybody else has used. Matter of fact, the Ethiopian Bible was compiled by the people from Alexandria, Egypt, by Fermentus. The oldest copy of it is from the 1700s. It is not the oldest Bible. It is not even like if you wanted to say that the Marcion Bible is older. Eusebius put together a Bible before then, and the Ethiopians didn't even become Christian until 330 CE. You already had the Council of Nicaea in 325, and uh, Athanasius was already putting together the what he thought should be the canon between 325 and 369, and then it was finally finalized in around 369 to 382 before it was finalized. So they and that's a different version than what wound up being the Roman Bible or the Abyssinian Bible. Jacob, you missed a lot. You have given me the best advice for understanding myself and the world around me. You have to free yourself to be yourself. Yes, indeed. I drink lots of water and juices. I'm 160. I'm 260. I'm 100 pounds heavier than you, Trump. That's why I got to drop about 30. I've already dropped some, but beforehand, before we moved here. Let's see. Is the letter of Arthesis, was that the alleged Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible of the 72 elders sent from Egypt to Jerusalem, which led to the Septuagint? Is how we got the pyramid text within the Bible. I'm not sure about that letter, but I know the Septuagint was created when Ptolemy the Fourth gained control of Egypt after Alexander had passed away or murdered in the third century BCE. And so the Septuagint was created. Um, it was created out of Alexandria, Egypt, but the Israelite people had already they already had those writings. The pyramid text being a part of the Bible would have come about during that time frame from 900 BCE up until around the 400s BCE, when the Genesis story was finished, all this editing and things of that nature. But trauma, if I cut the alcohol, I can't have it with my cigar. What are you talking about, sir? I was just playing, y'all, just messing around. But yeah, so we have to. So we're about to get off here in a minute. So as a recap of the information, when you look at the different origin stories of the world, the creation stories from the Egyptians, you have to look at it from the standpoint that there is a Hermopolis story that leads up to the Heliopolis story that builds up into the Memphis story that then builds up into the story of Thebes, and then the Egyptian creation story from all the buildup that becomes the Amun story made its way into the Israelite story as it took from them, because all these things just build each other up. And I suggest you study all of them to be able to see that. Yeah. Um, well, okay, y'all still saying if all religions started in Africa, in fact, all things should should we not believe the African religion that was made and taught to those ancient days? No, no, because even and now Africa, there are thousands of African religions, but even those religions believe that there was a goddess of the water, a god of the mountain, a god of the lightning. You know, of course, there is the God that created everything, whether it's Chetua or you're looking at Ogun or not Ogun, um, Odamare, who created everything. They still are nature based. The Kemetic, which is an African religion, is and the Ifa, the Yoruba religion, they have similarities as well because they're a lot of it is nature based. I saw a lightning bolt. It must be a god. Oh, he's angry. We had a drought. There must be a god. You know. So no, none of these ancient religions should be believed. None of them, because they all are devoid of science. That nature says hell no to that. What are my thoughts on Terrence Howard's new math terminology? Yeah, I think he went. I was, I was riding with him a little bit, but then I think he just went too far away. I can't even remember what it was, where he lost me. Um, it was something I can't remember. I saw it, and then I was out of it within like a couple of days. Are the real Hebrew Israelites black? Are they people of color? Sure. Are they? They didn't have race back then. You got it. Okay, here's the thing: the Canaanite people are Mediterranean people. So the Canaanite people who become the Israelites had contact with Europeans, had contact with Cushite people, had contact with Arabia, all across North Africa. They had contact with all these people from all these different groups. I'm sure they were some shade of brown. Are they the black people in America? Hell no. But they were some shade of brown, sure. But they might be dark skinned, they might not be dark skinned, right? You can have generations of people. When we think about time and space and people and migrations and nations conquering, um, I'm sure that when Alexander first arrived, when his armies first arrived in what was it, like four, no, around three BC, 300 BCE, somewhere around that time frame. When they first arrived in Egypt, you got these, very light, what we call white today, but low pigmentation people, forced to intermarry into some dark pigmentation people. Well, actually, when he arrived, some medium pigmentation people, because they had already been trading with these people. They already been dealing with these people, and then they have been dealing with this Cushites and the South Sudanese people. So you had a mixture and an array of people. They didn't see themselves in race as much as they saw themselves in lineage of fatherhood and motherhood. Thank you. 332 is when he invaded. So, but with his invasion, it would have lightened a lot of the people up for a while. But then as people continue to migrate and move around, the people get a little darker, then they get a little lighter. Then the Romans come in, and then the Romans are out, and then the Arabs come in, and it's just so much mixing. But if we even go back before Alexander to go to when there were the Canaanite people, those Canaanite people were ruled by the Kemetic people. The Kemetic people had a mixture already of Cushite people and what we may today call Arab-like people, and because they were also trading with the Greeks and the places like Croton and all that. They were already intermixing. People have been intermixing in the Mediterranean for an extremely long time frame, and you get changes. We literally have no idea the level of brown that these people were. We have no idea, right? Think about so when people say Moors, they often think just black people, but the Moors range from white all the way to black, right? When the Moors conquered the Iberian Peninsula and the Italian Peninsula, they were mostly a brown-skinned people. Most of them were brown-skinned because of the Arab nations and a lot of the upper the African nations that were closer to the Sahara. So they had some dark-skinned people too. So now, for 700 years, now they was there for 700 years, and they forced intermarriage for 700 years. This is why Italians generally look a little bit darker, and Spaniards look a little bit darker than the rest of the Europeans because of 700 years. And this is in more recent time, and for us, this is considered a more recent time frame. Now, but since that time frame ended around in the 1400s, from the 1400s till now, those same Italians and Spaniards have gotten lighter because they have intermixed with more Europeans, so they have gotten lighter. You know, is we can't be stuck on what color somebody was like, because at the end of the day, what does it matter? Like, what really does it matter? Right? You can't elevate your consciousness to a higher plane if you are hell bent on, well, these people had to have been black, or these people had to have been white, because that's a box that you're putting your consciousness in that won't allow you to grow. Do we deal with racism? Yes. Do we fight against it? Yes. But do we box ourselves in with it? We shouldn't. We shouldn't. We should never do that. No, they never dominated all of Europe, just those peninsulas. So, um, I'm just going to answer this one. If I'm just talking about if I was describing myself as the color that I am, I'm dark brown. But in the confines of how we exist in America, when I sign paperwork, I'm black. There is yeah, I'm black when it comes to legal stuff. But reality, I'm dark brown. So are we to live free from religious dogma? Hell yes. 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 You need to live as free as you possibly can from religious dogma, because 99% of everything in the Bible is, and the Quran and the Vedics and all that shit is worthless. Melvin, I understand what you're saying. Should you protect the history of your ancestors? Yes. Protect that history. It should be taught, it should be known. Should you protect yourself when they want to erase you? Of course you should. Because, like I said, we have to deal with race, but we should not. Our thought process on how we exist with other people shouldn't be based on race. But yes, we deal with it. We shouldn't allow for, I don't think anybody should allow for their history to be taken away. The church didn't really go after me. Actually, most of the pastors that I've dealt with in my past, um, they still talk to me and ask me a lot of questions. And some of them, I am helping them to get themselves financially situated. Well, I've helped them to get themselves financially situated so that they can walk away from the churches themselves. I think I don't have any pastors who, I really didn't get a lot of hate from, other than when I was a child. But once I got, and that was just because I was asking questions. But as an adult, I don't get a lot of people trying to chase me down or going at me. I get more hate from doing this than I ever do in my real life. Um, but anyway, I gotta get off here, guys. I gotta get off here. It's time to go. It's time to go. But I appreciate you guys. If anybody donates to the channel right there, I greatly appreciate that, especially because you can't do it on YouTube anymore. Thank you very much. If anybody purchased a shirt, the link was in the comments for purchasing a shirt on. I saw Angelina do it on Facebook. I did not see her do it on YouTube, but after I get off here, I will post it on there. So I appreciate all the support that you guys have given us for it. Thank you everybody for being here, for subscribing to the channel. It's been great. It's been wonderful. Continue to share and subscribe. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. And as always, y'all can keep talking in the comments, but I'm out.